I'm up on a ridge. It's on North Carolina public lands. Today's March the 5th. We had a light frost this morning, got a light wind going, so the temperatures are probably in the 30s. Feels really good out here. And I just came up here this morning, gonna look for a little bit of turkey sign. This is our second season for those of you that's been watching. First season was pretty successful. We were able to tag out in our home state. So we're hoping to be able to duplicate that again this year, but we're gonna get an early start on it. I'm gonna look around, look for some scratch sign, but I'm gonna go back to the same areas where the turkeys have been before. And there was those three things that I mentioned in last year's video: roosting sites, food, and those strut zones. And I'm looking for benches and saddles and things like that on these ridges because I'm hunting in steep terrain. This is steep mountainous terrain. Okay, I'm just showing you some old sign here. If you look at the ground, I'll go back and take a look at it again. Here's some old turkey sign. And if you look out right there, there's a bench. So what those birds are doing, they're flying off this steep ridge, and that bench is flat, so it makes the angle of their flight into the trees a lot easier than versus a steep angle. They like to roost there, then they fly back to either side. So look for benches, and then look for areas adjacent to those benches where they're flying down, and you'll start seeing the leaves scratched out where the turkeys are feeding. So, you know, turkeys range is, 300-400 to 1,000 acres, just depending on topography and where you're at. But they're probably moving around a little bit. This is Saturday, so didn't see any birds or hear anything this morning. We'll make a mental note of that and remember that next time we'll come back in the woods, especially when the season opens. So when we find some fresh turkey sign, we'll show you that as well. But you can tell that they've been in here up to there. Kids up here listening for turkeys, slipped up on this ridge and found, what was that, 4 deer bedded? So that's pretty cool. So you can tell it's foggy this morning. Temperatures are about mid 30s, so it's not that bad out here. Light wind, so it should be pretty good. Okay, you can see right through here, some fresh scratch sign. If we zoom in past that cherry tree right there, right in there, you can see where it goes. Right up that bench, see where it flattens out. So just by looking at the angle here, it tells me those turkeys were probably roosted somewhere up in there, and they flew back and started scratching this way. There's probably a little bit more scratch sign up through there. Yeah, right here's some, right above that tree, right in there. And there's some more up there. If I can zoom in on it, see where those leaves are kicked up at, right in there. And this is pretty fresh, and even though I'm talking fairly loud, remember the no whisper commitment. I'm gonna try to slip up through here. It rained 2 days ago, so the conditions are really good for stalking. So I'm just gonna slip around through here. Who knows, we might get lucky and catch up on these birds. I had just finished an interview just a few minutes before this, about 75 to 80 yards below from where I'm seeing these birds. And I was actually looking to my left, but I noticed that the scratch sign didn't cross that old logging road. So I walked up on the hill and looked to my right, and as soon as I did, I saw these birds feeding on this finger ridge. And if you notice, there is a mature bird with them, which is fairly interesting because the data in my state shows that the peak breeding is several weeks out. Our state biologists are using ARUs to record gobbling from the toms and determine the peak gobbling, which also helps us determine when the breeding is. And we're several weeks away from that. So these birds were just feeding together, or they're actually starting the breeding early this year. But either way, it was great to be able to see these birds, especially after we saw that fresh sign. Sorry about the footage. From where I did that last interview down there where we saw the scratch sign, didn't walk 80 yards. and it's so quiet I didn't hear them scratching. I was looking to the left, and boom, there they were. And there's a nice gobbler in there. And he actually started strutting a little bit further up there. I don't know how well the footage was of the birds. Hopefully you was able to see them. But that's pretty cool. Be able to slip up here, find the scratch sign. Kind of with a 90% confidence level determine where the roosting area is. But then they're swinging around this finger ridge right here. They come off that bench, work to that little ravine, and cut back around this finger ridge, and then they're going back that way. So this right here would be a really good area to set up on. You could set up, right in here, because the turkey's going to be coming from that direction and working their way. This is actually going west, so working their way from the east to west. Pretty nice. That's where that flock of birds were at. They've been working this area really good. And then what they basically did, they eased up that this little finger ridge right here, and there's another bench straight up this finger ridge. So I don't know if they worked their way back or they continue to work their way up. But what I'm doing right now is, I'm looking for places to get set up. If they continue the same pattern, the same movement pattern coming from the east to the west. I believe they're roosting on another bench down this ridge. So, when I look at this maple tree right here might be a pretty good place to get set up. It's big enough right here. Get set up right in this direction, and it's fairly open there, but he won't be able to see you until he comes right off that little ravine. It's not big enough to be a holler. It's just a depression in this ridge line. But then if he goes down below you, you got a shot down there too. This would pretty much put me centralized where all this sign's at. So if they decide to go a little lower, 35-yard shot. If they go higher, another 35, 40-yard shot. So this is looking really good. So I'm optimistic about our chances right here. So it pays to go in and scout. Here's another thing to keep in mind, and I've said this before, this is what they're scratching for, these acorns. So find the food sources, you'll find the birds. It's just like deer hunting. You'll find the food, you'll find the deer. So we're optimistic about this setup. Okay, we just finished our scout this morning. Really fortunate to see that flock of turkeys. That worked out great. As I said, I'm gonna make a note of that. We was up here on one Saturday, didn't see anything. Last Saturday, matter of fact. And then today, Thursday, we saw a lot of sign, and we actually saw the birds making the signs. So that worked out really good. So this is our second year for One Shot. If you followed along with us, last year was our inaugural year of making videos. So we're going to try to stick with it again this year. We've got projects we're trying to work on, also some new products. I haven't shown those on the videos, but we're going to try to do that also this year. So that's a storyline. Stay tuned. We've got a couple of new products coming out, and we've got some old ones we want to try to unveil to our audience that's watching on YouTube. But as far as turkey season goes, last year was the first time I'd ever tagged out. I'll just be honest with you. Lord willing, I'd like to be able to do that again this year. I'd like to be able to tag out again and maybe get one of those with a bow. We'll see how that works out. My son-in-law hunted turkeys for the first time last year. Worked out really good. I hadn't been back in the woods for several weeks, so I've been going to Virginia trying to kill a bird. And man, we got on a bird that morning, just couldn't bring him in. So I'd like to get my son-in-law his first bird. Also would like to get his first deer with a bow. He's killed a buck with a rifle, never taken one with a bow. So we're going to try to accomplish that also. And talking about that, when we go to Ohio and hunt, a new strategy this year, we're going to start teaming up, one video, one hunt, and then just rotate the hunts. That way you got double the ears, double the eyes for a successful hunt. And it's a lot easier versus, self-filming. You can do the self-filming, but it is fairly difficult. So we're going to change that strategy up this year. So that was another storyline. And also a couple of storylines for those bucks in Ohio. We got a couple of really good deer on video last year. Don't know if we'll see those deer. I've seen deer before on trail camera pictures and never see them again. So maybe we'll see some of those big deer that we saw. There was a really large 8-point we saw, and then there was probably a 2.5-year-old 8. got a couple storylines there. And then Alabama, if you remember that hunt, went down there and camped in my car for 2 nights, 17 degrees one night, 24 the next night. But it was super fun going down there, just hunting different terrain. Met some people down there that were super nice, very helpful. So I'd like to go back to Alabama, maybe get on a buck that's, you know, a legal buck down there. They have that 6-point rule, but like to be able to harvest deer down there as well. So there's several storylines we got going this year. So, you know, stay tuned and, you know, help us grow by liking and subscribing, and we'll see you next time.